If you're the child of a narcissistic, toxic, emotionally immature parent, you have possibly taken the difficult yet very brave decision to cut them off, to go no contact. And you've done that after watching content and learning that all this time you were thinking you were the problem, but in reality, you were being abused. And you did it. You said, you know what? I'm going to cut them off. I'm going to go no contact. I'm going to do this thing that people call no contact. And I'm going to go on my healing journey and finally heal from these people. And you do it. Maybe you send them a nice little message and you announce that you're going to go no contact, or maybe you just let it go altogether. And at first, it feels like a relief. You're like, you know what? That's it. This feels good. Finally, now I feel great. And maybe your life changes. Maybe life really, really suddenly changes for the better. But eventually, what catches up is a lot of guilt. So today we're going to talk about that guilt and the fact that you feeling guilt is actually part of whatever happened to you. It's part of the abuse. So feeling guilty is part of the post and the aftermath of abuse. Dealing with guilt after going no contact can possibly become an even bigger of a challenge than your actual experience with your abusive parents. Because that one was not something you could control over. But then this one, it's your decision. And apparently all of this discomfort would cease to exist if you stopped acting out and just went along with all of this insanity as it was, or so they say, right? Because now they go around and the family or the parent that you cut off is telling people that you're ungrateful. They're coming up with all sorts of illnesses that they have, that you caused them, right? Definitely you. They play the victim card, and a lot of them don't even respect those boundaries at all. And then there's the other type of parent that will do absolutely nothing as a response to your boundaries or your no contact, which is a painful chapter of going no contact. You actually want it. It's better for you because they're not going to reach out and do things. But deep down in every child that decides to go no contact, there's always a little bit of hope that maybe by going no contact, the narcissistic parent will have this realization like, hey, that's my kid. You know, it doesn't want to talk to me. I should fix this. Maybe they will remember that you're their child and they love you, but they don't, right? They don't normally do that, and they will not reach out. And you know why? Because they don't think any of this is their fault. All they're seeing is that all of what's happening right now, whatever havoc you going no contact has created, is your fault, and you need to stop. Guilt is a powerful tool to condition humans, alongside fear and shame. The real holy trinity of narcissistic parents, and arguably patriarchy too. Guilt makes you feel responsible for other people's feelings, reactions, and needs. In the narcissistic family, it conditions you to override your desires for the sake of pleasing or protecting the parent. In patriarchy, guilt is weaponized to keep women good, right? By self-sacrificing, being dutiful. And then fear keeps you hypervigilant, scanning for danger or punishment, right? It's a mechanism that ensures compliance before rebellion can even form. So we're being spooked already before we become adults to even dare and think about things. So in narcissistic homes, you learn to fear unpredictable moods, rejection or withdrawal of love, right? And in patriarchy, you fear being abandoned or being undesirable, being too much or being not enough. It's rejection, really, that you're afraid of. And that shapes so much of how we show up, right? And then shame goes deeper. Shame doesn't just tell you that you did something wrong. It says that you are wrong. Shame is such a painful experience. And it conditions the very core of ourselves, creating an identity that is organized around feeling defective. We feel essentially defective. And in the narcissistic home, shame is the tool that diminished your confidence, and in patriarchy, it reinforces control. So the Holy Trinity looks like this. Shame shapes your sense of self by thinking you're bad, right? So you say, I'm bad. Fear shapes your sense of safety because you're like, oh, if I want to be safe, I must obey to avoid being punished, right? And guilt shapes your sense of duty. You owe compliance. It's genius, isn't it? Oppressive systems don't just dominate from the outside. They start dominating from our families, and then they grow into the societies that we live in, and we're already primed for it. And as women, we end up coming out of these childhoods policing ourselves, and nobody else has to do it for us. It's already, the program is installed. It's working on its own. But anyway, how do narcissistic parents bless you with holy guilt? Well, first of all, they make you feel guilty for existing as a separate beings by shaming your needs, your desires. They just make you feel like it's a burden to them, right? So if you, for example, express frustration over something that happened, they will say, do you know how hard I work for you? Do you know all these things that I do for you? And so instead of acknowledging that you're frustrated over something, they make you feel guilty for expressing that frustration. Then they also make you feel, narcissistic parents make you feel guilty for not meeting their emotional needs, because they usually want you to be a surrogate partner, right? A therapist or a friend, because they are emotionally mature. They expect you to be there for them. And when you're not, they will say, after everything I've done for you, I've just asked you to do this for me. They're always waiting and expecting you to do something for them. But you're not allowed to have expectations like that. You're riddled with guilt when they compare you, for example, with a sibling and say, you know, your sister never causes any trouble. Why are you always doing that? Why are you doing this to our family? Like as if you're the reason the family's suffering. They guilt you for asserting your autonomy, right? So there's a lot of guilt tripping in narcissistic households. Everything you do, everything you feel, everything that happens somehow becomes an experience where you're feeling guilty for saying it, for feeling it, for doing something about it. Because now whatever is happening in the home or in the mood of this person that you have had to call your parent, it's your fault. And you feel responsible for that, and now you feel guilty. So feeling guilt was a signature feeling, right, in narcissistic households. So life happens, and you thankfully survive the nightmare of your childhood, and you eventually start to see what has been happening to you. And then you have narcissistic content flooding your YouTube feed, and you're beginning to understand that this was quite messed up, right? And eventually, if you land on content that actually validates you, instead of asking you to picture your parents' inner children and forgive them, my pet peeve, if you haven't noticed, you will realize that the only sane thing to do in this insane situation is to disconnect from these people, right? It becomes common sense, and it's not an easy decision. And you don't know for how long, because it's not really a diet, is it? There's no real goal, but you just know that you can no longer tolerate being treated in the same way that they've always treated you, by dismissing you, judging you, humiliating you, shaming you, passive aggression, hearing all sorts of horrible names attached to your name that apparently describe you. You're like, you know what? I'm actually not a child anymore. I don't need to stay in proximity to you. And you may silently never speak to them again. Or like a lot of you tell me, you send them an elaborate message to explain why. And I get why you do that, right? I get it. It's almost like, you know, you're telling them, so hopefully they will respect it and they'll make it easier on you. But in my opinion, this is just talking to someone in a coma. They may hear you, but they're not going to respond in a way that you see that they get it. Actually, people in a coma may actually have more chances of responding to you in a way where they seem like they get it than your emotionally mature parent. Am I right? Anyway, accountability isn't their strong point, and you know it. Although they love shaming everybody else in their path, they cannot sit down with their own shame and the fact that they hurt their child so much that now their child feels like they have to get away from them. So this guilt that you're feeling after going no contact, for very valid reasons, is the conditioning that taught you that it's your job to caretake your parents' feelings, even at the cost of your well-being. The guilt comes from the belief that cutting contact makes you a bad child and ungrateful for what and all that they did for you, even though that they've been abusive, right? And they've done so many things to you as well, right? So they could have raised you and fed you and sent you to school and paid for your tuition, but they also abused you for your entire life. So one cannot sort of delete the other. Both can exist, but if they're abusive, it's very valid that you decided to walk away. But you feel guilty because it makes you a bad child. That's what they call you. It makes you ungrateful, right? Now, the other reason why you feel so much guilt after going no contact is that the ingrained message of family being sort of like sacred, no matter what, is really, really powerful in our society, right? You know that phrase, blood is thicker than water. It's actually a phrase to sort of keep you stuck with these people. It's actually a misquotation of the original phrase, which actually meant the opposite. So they just made a toxic remix. The commonly used blood is thicker than water is a distortion of the older proverb that says the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, which essentially means that bonds formed by choice through shared experience, loyalty, and commitment can be stronger and more meaningful than mere biological ties. Isn't it convenient that we only have half of that popularized and left and used, right? So your narcissistic parents prime you with guilt by making you feel like you're bad and you're abusive, because now they're the victims of what you're doing to them after what they did for you. They did everything for you, but they don't say that they did everything to you as well, right? They're skipping that part. And, they're saying, oh, they sacrificed their life for you. That's what a parent does. Like, don't have children if you don't intend to devote your life to them. That's what it is, right? And now that you can't really be happy unless you work on them being happy. So this guilt is going to feel heavy. It's going to feel heavy because they've always managed to make you feel guilty, one way or the next. So now they could just say one phrase, one word, or say something to your sister, to your brother, to your aunt, and you hear it and you're immediately feeling guilt. And what you do with this guilt is you start ruminating. You're replaying scenes. You're wondering, did I do the right thing? Am I a bad child? They did do everything they could. Maybe you come across a video that tells you that and you're like, oh no, my poor dad. He was also... maybe you have siblings that are telling you, oh, your mom or your dad is struggling. You should go to this family dinner. Let's be a family together. You've broken our family apart and all that. And people are just putting you back into that loop. So you start doubting yourself. You question your judgment. Was it really that bad? You ask. I don't know. You tell me. By the way, if you really want to know if it was that bad, try visiting mentally your inner child for a day in your childhood home. I dare you. I have a session in Heal. It's one of the first few sessions that people do, which is essentially going back to the childhood home. And nobody has a good experience there. Nobody comes back thinking, oh, I had such a great childhood, right? Obviously, we wouldn't be here having these conversations with people that had a good childhood. But what I mean is, if we really connect with who we were and what our experiences really were, we will know without a doubt that it was actually that bad, which is why this work of validating our experience is so important, right? Some people are like, yeah, get over it. The past is the past. Obviously, we're going to get over it. Obviously, this is the process of getting over it. You can't get over something you don't acknowledge, right? Or you don't accept that it happened. You don't get over it. In that way, you're suppressing it. And it's going to show up one way or the next. So the work of inner validation through remembering our past is powerful, because you don't have to keep wondering, was it really that bad? Because you remember how bad it was. And those natural boundaries that emerge through remembering and through that rage that shows up in the anger, because you couldn't really protect yourself then, you couldn't defend yourself, nobody was saving you, nobody walked in and stopped whatever was happening. So all of those things will force will awaken this force in you to finally protect yourself and stop doubting yourself, right? So how do we manage all of this guilt? Really, is we first of all validate our experience and truly remember how bad it was, meaning that's why you're doing it. You're not doing it because now they've sent you a nice message or a card or money or they're sick, right? That's not why you're doing it. You're doing it because there was a long history between you and these people of them hurting you over and over and over again. Might I add also, it was totally unnecessary that they did so. They had no reason to be emotionally abusing their own child. Their survival did not depend on abusing you. On the other hand, your survival depended on you being close to these abusers for a lot of your life. And finally, now that your survival isn't dependent on that, hopefully for a lot of you that's not the case, right? That you don't need them to survive. You have your own house, you have a job, you have some money. You don't have to live with them. But now that you have that opportunity, you're like, you know what? I don't need to be around them and I'm going to keep myself safe. That is the most honorable and brave decision you can make for that younger you that couldn't escape, couldn't walk away. You had nowhere to go and no other way of feeling safe, right? So if you're feeling all this guilt for going no contact, or people are trying to make you feel guilty, your family and people around you are trying to sort of make you go back so that everything can just be normal again by you just putting it aside and not making it such a big deal. It wasn't such a big deal. Whatever. Let it go. Let's move on. Life is short. I'm going to say two things. Life is short, indeed. And I mean, your life is short too. And you spent possibly maybe even half of it being entangled and trying to manage the emotional experience of somebody very emotionally unstable, hurtful, and abusive. That, yes, gave you life, fed you, whatever they did, took care of you. But eventually, isn't this life yours? Right? Aren't you supposed to live this life for you? Aren't you supposed to be able to choose to be around people that like you and are nice to you? Or do you have to live this life devoted to those who never appreciated your value besides what you could do for them? Seeing you as a commodity, and I always say this, I think in a big part in patriarchal societies, children are a retirement plan. That's why all these parents are retaliating now, because they're like, I did all these things for you, now I have nobody to give me a glass of water. Well, have you tried being nicer to your kids so that they want to be around you when you're old? No, you didn't have to. But anyway, the second thing I want to tell you is I want you to truly sit down today and journal a day in your life when you were a kid. And imagine that you told this kid, you know what? When we are X years old, however old you are today, we're going to leave this place and we're not going to talk to them again and we're going to build a better life. And tell me how this child feels about it. Tell me, write it in the comments. See it for yourself. That this child, in many ways, has always needed someone to save them from their parents. And right now, with going no contact, this is possibly what you're doing. So, guilt is part of the conditioning. But then a lot of the things that we don't do them for the side effects or what comes after them. We do them for what we need to get out of them, right? What are you getting out of the no contact? And is the guilt something you would choose instead of the things that you're getting from the no contact? What would you prefer to be experiencing? This guilt and find ways to manage and stand by your decision? Or you just want to let it go, let all of whatever is coming up in your life because of the no contact so that you don't feel guilty? Evidently, it's your choice, right? Deciding what's more important for you. Not what's less hard, but what's really meaningful and important and necessary for you. And potentially also thinking about the younger you too. I'll see you soon.